What's happening, guys? Welcome to the Dynasty Warzone, the People's Dynasty podcast. On today's show, we're going to do a little stock up, stock down for Dynasty. And I'll tell you whose stock's always up because he stands on business. It is my co-host, Mr. Jerry Sinclair, better known as the man of the hour and the man with the power. Jerry, man, welcome back.
Randall, it is wonderful to be here. I was in Michigan, so I could not be here last week. Could have tried to have done it from the hotel, but it would have just been a disaster. I am thankful to be back here with you, my friend. How was your week without me?
Oh, it was good. Good. Producer Kevin jumped in. Normally he's on the back side of the glass, turning switches, dials, doing the YouTube stuff, but he jumped out on behind the microphone. He went from behind the glass to behind the mic, jumped on with me. I think he did a tremendous job in your stead, but we're glad you're back. We're glad that you got to go spend time with your family. Now, for those listeners that weren't privy to the phone call between Jerry and I said, hey, dude, are you going to be able to make this podcast? And here's what I got.
Questions? Just kidding. Thank you. Fuck you. Bye.
That was exactly what Jerry left on my voicemail. But Jerry, I'm glad you got to go back from Iowa to Michigan, got to see your family, got to see your wife's family. You got a break from the real job, and we're ready to talk some fantasy football.
Yes, sir. Could use it too. So much running around this week.
Yeah, you had to live through a Lions loss. The Packers look better. We'll get into all of that. Just want to take a quick second to remind you that you can find the Dynasty Warzone on the Player Profiler YouTube channel, as well as the Dynasty Warzone YouTube channel. Same with the podcast for you audio subscribers. You can find it on our feed. You can find it on the Player Profiler feed. We would really super appreciate if you subscribed to both feeds. So we're going to jump right into the body of the show. Let's get one commercial out of the way real quick, and we'll jump into the stock up, stock down.
This episode brought to you by Mojo. Mojo is that player stock market. We love Mojo because we like making lifetime bets on players. You run out the clock on these guys. Mojo just rolled out a brand new fantasy platform. That's right. So now you can build a portfolio of player props. Oh, Jamar Chase, over 77.5. Oh, Kadarius Toney, under 15.5. Whatever the under is on Kadarius Toney, doesn't matter. You can just stack up the props in your portfolio. And the beauty is, once the Sunday games kick off, it's not over. It's not over until it's over with Mojo, because once those games kick off, you can then move in and out of positions. Let's say that you're well ahead of expectations. You can cash out. Let's say you're behind expectations. You're underwater. Well, you can double down. That's what makes Mojo so special, why they're different. Check it out. Go to the App Store, get the Mojo app, and use the promo code UNDERWORLD. The promo code UNDERWORLD gets you a 100% deposit match up to $100. So the promo code is UNDERWORLD, and they will match your deposit dollar for dollar. Go to Mojo, start building your portfolio, and then during the games, you can be a fantasy day trader.
I'm not saying that our stock up, stock down show was the genesis behind Mojo and the Mojo app and treating Dynasty and Devy assets like stock. I'm not saying that we created that, but I'm not saying we didn't either. One last shameless plug. Got to remember to remind you to check out First Class Fantasy with my buddies Theo and Billy. That's Theo Grimminger and Billy Muzio. Two of the head honchos over at Player Profiler. Be sure to tell them Jerry and I sent you. And if you like the show, remind them that Jerry and I sent you. And if you don't like the show, don't say a damn word. Not a single word. All right, Jerry, you ready to do some good people, bad tweets?
I would be so happy to.
Now, this is a good people with good tweets. This is not a bad tweet. This is a good tweet. It was our boy Ray Garvin. At Ray GQ on Twitter, and Ray tweeted, traditional dynasty rankings in today's game mean so little because so few players actually matter from a production standpoint. Value and community perception is king and far more important getting the rest of this here. It's day trading. What can you do for me this week? The hell with 2 years from now. So I saw this. I will tell you my reaction, Jerry, because my reaction was pretty simple. I thought Ray's tweet was very spot on. My reaction to this was dynasty rankings mean so little because people overvalue them in the offseason and completely disregard them in the regular season. Kyron Williams in May, to use a Jerry term, not worth a wet sock because, well, rankings. Kyron Williams in December, while he's balling out, 6 firsts, a pony, and your firstborn child because points. That's why, and I'm not saying it to like get out of it because we're lazy. Yeah, that could be part of it, but it's because I don't find super tons of value in rankings. And I'm doing something different. I'll explain here in a second, but I'm going to throw it back to you. What are your thoughts when you hear Ray talking about rankings and how little he thinks they mean? Because I agree with him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you too. I think the day trading is probably the biggest thing because perception is the absolute motivator and driver of what value is, and that changes on a dime. So I can dig it. Points will always influence value. Off-season, rankings will always make everybody go nuts. It's just what happens. And while it's not beneficial, I understand why people love rankings and they eat them up every single time. But I think you're right, Randy. It's just they're a drug that don't do us any good, but yet we still keep going after them.
Well, I'll throw props to Player Profiler. I know they update them at least every other week, if not every single week, which in and of itself is a chore. It just goes to show you. And it's not like Matt doesn't take care of people for doing rankings either. It's work and there's value in it, but like in season, it fluctuates so much that, and then you got to do them like as soon as the season's over, right? You got to do rankings. At least if you do rankings, you got to do dynasty rankings. And then all of a sudden, so the season ends like, let's say Valentine's Day. The Super Bowl is right around Valentine's Day now, right? You got to make sure no one gets injured, blah, blah, blah. Then those back 2 weeks of February, you got to do your rankings. Well, then right around St. Patrick's Day, the middle of March is free agency. And that skews all the rankings. So then you got to redo all your rankings, right? Because then things happen. Then what's in the next month? April. Oh, yeah, it's the NFL draft. That skews your rankings. And then you get into your summer. Then you get camp battles. Skews your rankings. Rankings for me, I think, are just a part of a formula that allows trade calculators and trade analyzers to work. For me, I'm working on something for our patrons. It's going to be a podcast this week, hopefully this week, but about how to build dynasties in this modern games world. Because the way that you and I, when we started this program 6 years ago, the way that you built then is not the way that you played now. And it can't be. The game has evolved. The players in the game have evolved. The content in the space has evolved. And if you don't evolve with it, it's like the NFL. You can't play the same game you played in 2017. And I'll tell you, do not be surprised with so many teams running that too high safety look to neutralize the passing game. Don't be surprised if in the next year or two, we don't see a really big running back renaissance from a fantasy and a dynasty standpoint. Just don't be surprised at all. Everything's cyclical. Everything moves. And that's something I'm working on for our patrons over at patreon.com/Dynasty Warzone. I just, shameless plug, I worked it in because it works in with the tweet. But I thought this was a good tweet. And Ray's obviously a great dude. So I thought, what a better time to have the conversation than now.
True.
All right. So we're not going to give Ray Dana White. We would never give Ray Dana White. So, this is what I'm thinking for this one because it describes me and now Jerry's using it.
I'm hurt and I'm old and I'm fucking tired and I work with fucking children.
Does that work for you?
Love that quote.
It's
motto of my life.
It becomes the motto of your life. So luckily, no big major injuries this week. Nothing that's going to shut anybody down. We will get Dr. Kyle on somewhere between now and the end of the season. Maybe instead of doing a stock report, because the stock report gets a little redundant week in, week out for you, the listener, and for us as the hosts. So maybe between now and the end of the season, because we're 2/3 of the way through the regular season.
Wild.
As crazy as that is to say, week 12 is done. We got 6 weeks to go. So crazy as it is, we got a third of the season left to go. We'll get Dr. Kyle on here. He's our board certified doctor of physical therapy. He helps us cover the injuries, and we'll get him on to talk more injuries with us. But with all that being said, Jerry, let's get into some stock up, stock down.
Cool. Let's do it.
All right, man. So your Lions hosted the Green Bay Packers. And for me, it's I don't want to say stock up on Jordan Love, but I'm thinking Jordan Love is a buy. He's playing better. He scored more fantasy points. And listen, people will say, well, his mechanics are this and his judgment is that. And a lot of people in this dynasty space pretend like they're the X's and O's guru. They're the talent evaluating guru. They're film group gurus. They're not. And I don't pretend to be either. What I care about is fantasy points. Who scores them? Is it sustainable? Is it repeatable? And I tell you, there's been some peaks and valleys in Jordan Love, but I think he's fine. He's QB1 right now. He's the QB9 on the season. He's scored more points on the season than Tua, and he's had his bye. And to think about it, he doesn't have Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle or those running backs. He's got hurt Aaron Jones, who's missed as many games as he's played. Christian Watson's fluctuated. He's got Jerry's college alumni brother in Jaden Reed. He's got all these young guys. I think Jordan Love's looked pretty solid. I mean, I don't want to go crazy, but there's worse you could do than Jordan Love.
He has pooped his pants from time to time.
Your starter would.
100%. And that's my point, though, is because of those times that he has pooped his pants and he has had one of the weirdest careers that we've seen sort of in modern football, where he had to wait for multiple years, which is just something we don't see. People are not in love with the man. And so his value is sort of stayed dipped down. He played well. I mean, he had a 30-some yard rush, plus he had the 3 touchdowns. I have just come to terms with the fact that sports will never give me enjoyment. And I have somehow upset the football gods, and they can just not let me have nice things. Because I hated that game with everything in me. The hype was all there. We were finally going to have some joy on a Thanksgiving, and the Lions couldn't do that to me. Well, Jared Goff couldn't do that to me. Now, he ended up getting it close, and he played okay, minus the fumbles, but, bro, you got to hold on to the ball. But I'm with you. Jordan Love is a value and absolutely someone you should try to acquire. He's not going to win you championships. But when you've got, how many quarterbacks have we seen go down this year, Andy? A ton.
Tons.
And if you had him as QB3 or QB4 and you're plugging him in and you're getting QB1 production, what are we talking about? You want that insulation. That's exactly how you can maintain your record so you can get into the playoffs and try to win the damn thing.
Well, you said he kind of pooped his pants. How many single-digit games has he had this year? How many games has he had less than 10 points?
Probably the first game of the Lions, and I don't know entirely.
One. He had one single-digit game in week 5. Since the bye, he's been 15, 14, 14, 16, 21, 27.
Vanilla ice cream.
But here's currently on the season, he's the QB 10 overall. Now, mind you, again, Burrow's hurt, but Burrow wasn't ahead of him before the injury. Right. Kirk Cousins would have been ahead of him. There's a couple of Aaron Rodgers may have been. Sure. But here's the larger point to take away. He is a guy that you can get for back end QB2 prices that clearly is giving you QB1 upside. And what is this offense going to look like in year 2 under Jordan Love when Jaden Reed's not a rookie? He's in year 2. Christian Watson, hopefully, for once, can stay healthy coming into camp. Yeah. I got Romeo Dubes, the new Chris Carter. All he does is catch touchdowns. Second year for Luke Musgrave. They can maybe in free agency or the draft get a running back. I think there's more to like in the Packers offense than people realize. And I agree. I think he's a great QB2 that could really help a contender if someone's looking. Let's go Cowboys hosting the Commandos. Didn't have a lot, but like if you were the guy who accidentally drafted Brian Robinson instead of Bijan Robinson, you're not sad. You're not sad. My only concern with everyone in Washington is what does this look like next year? Because they're under new ownership. They came in so late into the offseason before the regular season started. It's the same guy that owns the 76ers. They're not going to jumble anything up. They've already fired Jack Del Rio. Ron Rivera is one of the odds-on favorites to be the next head coach fired, which what does that do with, oh my goodness, the guy who came over from the Chiefs as the offense? Yeah, Eric Bieniemy. What does that do with the offense? Because Bieniemy and whether or not he's there has a tremendous impact on Brian Robinson and Sam Howell and a lot of these guys. So I didn't really have anything, but Brian Robinson has been a revelation if you've needed running back depth in 2023. What about you, Jerry? You have anything else in that game?
No, I think that's pretty fair. I mean, Dak's been on an absolute terror, but it seems like he does that every single year. There's like a 3 or a 4 week period every single season where he's just an animal, and then you watch him for another month and he looks like a child.
By the way, Jerry and I, the Dynasty Warzone has always been a very pro Dak Prescott shop.
100%.
Very, very pro Dak here. Again, it's great that other services and rankings, going back to that they love the sizzle of the Justin Fields and those guys and Tua and Dak is boring. When it comes to my investments, give me IBM. Give me Amazon, give me Apple. I know it's boring. I know they're established. I know you want quickgimmick.com and you want to ride that. Cool. You invest in Bitcoin, I'll invest in Apple and we'll just see where we go long term. I do want to say Brian Robinson, RB5 on the season. RB5 on the season, a little misleading because he's not had his bye. So that's going to shake out a little bit. But if I told you coming into the season that Brian Robinson was going to have a top 5 running back season, you would have thought I was full of shit.
Correct.
And I'm not saying I'm not, but you also would have thought I was full of shit if you thought the Seahawks had any chance of beating the 49ers on Sunday Night Football. And for me, it's like stock down on JSN. I've got a trivia question for you with JSN. That's Jackson Smith and Jigba for you non-acronym people, non-initials people. How many games over 65 yards does JSN have this year?
I would say 3.
Close. Subtract 3, and that's your answer.
Wow, is it really?
0. 0 games over 65 yards. He's had 2 games over 60 yards. 2 touchdowns. Again, I'm not ready to lump him in the Quentin Johnston Bustorama. By the way, we'll talk about Quentin Johnston later. I've got some stats that'll curl your hair. Not really ready to go there. I think part of his issue is a byproduct of the offense in general. I mean, you as a dynasty gamer are heavily leveraged with DK Metcalf. You're a big DK Metcalf guy. He's not been horrible, but he's not been what you thought he is. Tyler Lockett, who had always been very steady, has not been good. The only Seahawk really up until he got injured that had been really worth a damn had been Kenneth Walker. So this could really be Seattle across the board. They're struggling, but I think the fact that JSN is a rookie, he was highly drafted out of a very popular university. I don't think you need to sell, but that doesn't mean that I don't have concerns.
I could say the exact same thing about DK Metcalf. And I say that because I do have a ton of DK Metcalf shares, but there has been nothing that he has done that has made me excited. It definitely hasn't made me win any matchups, but if I'm going to do a stock down on anybody, it's Zach Charbonnet, because he had 18 touches for 58 yards when he was the guy. K9's not there. I get it. You're going against San Francisco, but you're going to have to do a lot better than 58 yards on 18 touches. There was a couple teams where I have Kenneth Walker and I have Charbonnet, and I put Kenny down and I threw Zach in and I was confident with it, and it just did not come to fruition. And that is not it. You want to be able to see that when you get the opportunity. Not only does he have to deal with Kenneth Walker, but even in the outcomes when he doesn't have to play with him, he still did nothing for me. And if that is the case, why am I going to rely on him going forward?
Fun fact, DK Metcalf, currently the PPR wide receiver 34,
That's what I'm saying.
right behind your classmate, Jaden Reed.
It's been bad.
And Jaden Reed over the last 3 games has went 19, 19, 15.
And
I'm just looking at,
what's
by the
Geno's
way,
contract? Let me look
Geno is pretty much there. It's kind of like Daniel Jones. It was a 2-year deal that looked like a 3-year deal. I think you're looking at another Geno year next year.
Yeah. Okay. Then I'm good on any of them. Then I don't.
Yeah.
I think I'm good on DK Metcalf and JSN for the short term. Don't get me wrong. They'll have some good weeks, but as far as reliability on a championship level playoff contending team, where are you putting them? That's no, thank you. I'm good, and I can get value out of both of them, and I can get points too.
DK Metcalf is currently a wide receiver 3 with week winning upside. We know at any time.
And what can I trade for him though? You know what I can trade? I can get a lot. I can get a lot, and a hell of a lot better than wide receiver 30, whatever the hell you said.
You know, I mean, this is the kind of move where if you're a contender and maybe whoever had Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, we're going to talk about Mike Evans in our trade corner here in just a second. That's the kind of guy that if you can go offer DK Metcalf, say, hey, look, Geno's struggling. I need proven points. Give me the old guy. You take the guy going into his super prime. Can you get Keenan Allen plus for DK Metcalf? I don't know if you can during point scoring season, but if you're a good salesperson and put your salesperson hat on, maybe you could do it. Let's talk about the first ever Black Friday game. Great in concept, 3:00 Eastern time, Black Friday. Love it. It probably would have been a lot better if Aaron Rodgers hadn't have been hurt, but the Dolphins were hosted by the Jets, and my stock down's Tua. Now, if I'd have told you, well, are you, is it spicy when he scored less fantasy points than Brock Purdy, Sam Howell, Josh Dobbs, and Jordan Love on the season? With Tyreek Hill, I mean, and this is what I went back, we talked about Dak just a couple of games ago, right? Going into the season, you could have got Dak plus for Tua.
100%.
Because as Ray's tweet said, perception of the community drives the value. The perception is that Tua is better than Dak. That is false. That is a lie. That is a misnomer. He has got an offense that allows him to function at a QB1 level. He's like QB 13 right now, and that'll shake out because, again, injuries. Sam Howell's not had his bye, but Brock Purdy has, and Brock Purdy had a concussion and missed parts of a game. And Sam Howell, you know, he's a nobody out of nowhere. Josh Dobbs, he may get benched this week. And these are literally the guys scoring more fantasy points, and that's what it's all about, scoring fantasy points. But the perception drives the value. For me, I'm not letting that happen. I think Tua stock's down. I'm fine with you having him as like the RB12 in a startup, but I don't want him as my QB1. Fuck out of here.
I mean, no, you'd be thrilled if he was your 2 for sure. Is Tyreek Hill the 101 in redrafts next year?
No, because it never repeats. Like Cooper Kupp didn't repeat. Stephon Diggs.
Honestly, Tyreek Hill,
Justin Jefferson,
arguably has been better than what Antonio Brown was in his prime. And Antonio Brown was an animal.
He's on a pace right now. He is. Give me 1 second. I'll pull this up. If you go all players, the only person this season to score more fantasy points than him is Josh Allen. Here's the top 5: Josh Allen, Tyreek Hill, Christian McCaffrey, Jalen Hurts, Keenan Allen. And Tyreek Hill has the highest points per game. This is in full point PPR and basic QB scoring, 4 points per passing touchdown. Tyreek Hill is averaging 25.5 points a game.
This dude has 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns in 11 games.
I said
he's an animal.
Well, you weren't here last week, but I jumped on, not this week, but last week on First Class Fantasy with Billy Muzio and Theo. And we were talking about this. It's like, if you're concerned about like Justin Jefferson, look, it's week 13. If you're trying to win a championship and you can get like multiple picks, like a first and a second, and Tyreek Hill for Jamar Chase. Okay. I need 25.5 points a game.
Yeah.
I think Tyreek Hill's going to play another 2-3 years at a
Yep.
high level. I'll figure something out with that first you're going to give me back. I'll just figure it out because we're in this again. This goes back to the rankings. We're in point scoring season, and don't jump in the comments on YouTube or put a review in. How could you talk about trading Tyreek, for Jamar Chase? I'm like, listen, this is what it is in 2023. Could you have done that 5 years ago? No. Different world, baby. We got to play by the rules we're given.
True.
All right, let's do 1 p.m. game, and then we'll talk trade between you and myself. The Jaguars went to Houston, got a couple of calls, and we've mentioned this guy once already, but stock up Tank Dell. He is the wide receiver 2 overall out of the rookie class. And this question was asked on Twitter the other day. Would you rather have Puka Nacua or Tank Dell? So I'll ask the question to you, Jerry. Would you rather have Puka or Tank?
Tank Dell. I'm not even thinking a
10
second
out of 10
about it
times.
because he's got CJ Stroud. And with what CJ Stroud is doing versus whatever the hell the Rams are going to do, I get old and busted and often broken Matthew Stafford. No. Yeah, I'll take Tank Dell.
100%. And then this was directly from our Patreon group chat. Second time you've heard about the Patreon, and you're probably thinking to yourself, they're doing all these great podcasts for their patrons and they're engaging like this in their group chat, and it's only $5 a month. I know it's almost like it's free, but we were talking about this the other day. I was like, I feel like Tank Dell's actually got insulation from a dynasty value standpoint. Houston doesn't have a first.
Right.
The only free agent wide receiver that really would pucker my butthole would be T. Higgins. If T. Higgins shows up in Houston, if he gets a big fat wide receiver 1 contract, okay, now I'm nervous. But you look at the rest of the free agent class, I'm not worried about it. They're not going to use their first round pick on a wide receiver because, well, they don't have one. The second round wide receivers could or couldn't be a threat. I actually think taking Dell, and to a lesser degree, Nico Collins, from a dynasty standpoint, if you're looking just at 2024, I think their value is not only good, but I think it's insulated.
I'm with you because I don't think they're going to go after somebody like T. Higgins.
Defensive-minded head coach.
Nico Collins is a poor man's T. Higgins already, sort of that same type of wide receiver, and he's been highly productive. He has the rapport with CJ Stroud there. Clearly, they're confident in him because it took 3 years for him to be able to do a damn thing.
And the kind of money that Higgins will want. Higgins is going to want 20+ million.
Nico Collins costs you 1.2.
Exactly. And so do you just write? So back to Tank Dell, I think that you're getting a pretty good value considering looking into the future. What's he doing now? Like right now, he's scoring 16.5 PPR points a game. I don't know about you, but whether I'm contending or rebuilding, 16.5 points a game always looks good in a lineup. And you look over his last handful, here's been his last 4. Since the bye, he had a 6.1, not good. But then 29.6, 18.9, 28.9, 17.2. He is clearly the favorite target of CJ Stroud. Yeah. And it's him and it's Dalton Schultz and a little bit of Nico. I love it, Jerry. But what else I love is trading. And before we hit record on this podcast, you sent me a trade in Patron 9. P9. Now I will talk about this from my point of view because then you can counter. Young Gerald J. Sinclair sent me an offer of Mike Evans and his 2024 third for just my 2024 first. I am currently 9-3 in Patron League. This seems like a lot of them. I'm like 6-6. I'm the Indianapolis Colts, for the love of God, or the Buffalo Bills. A lot of upside, but you offered this to me. What's your situation? What is your situation with the offer?
So I am 4-8. I picked up this team as an orphan this offseason. So it's not really my team. But I've won enough games with decent enough younger talent. I have Dak, I have DeAndre Swift, I have Brock Purdy, I have Puka Nacua. and I look at my roster, and the big, fat, old guy that's sticking out, that's scoring points right now, is Mike Evans. And I look over at Randy's team, and he's, you're whatever you said you were, 9-3. And I look, and you got Elijah Moore starting. You got Robert Woods in there, and I'm going, you know what? I can help this man out. And I've got a first, but not my own first. Whoever I took this team over did not do me any favors when I took it. So I traded. I got another first, but it's late. So I'm trying to grab Randy's. It's going to be late. So maybe I can either work around the board a little bit or at least stack a little bit of talent, because this team's got little flashes, but it doesn't have bones. And I'm going to need some bones to build a foundation for this thing.
Well, here's my counter, and I think it's fair. I'm going to take
ever fair when Randy sends you a counter.
It depends. I'm going to give you Mike Evans. I'm going to take Mike Evans and your second, and I'm going to give you that first that you so greatly covet. And I'm going to throw in a rookie wide receiver because you need young talent. And I'm going to throw in Trey Palmer. Because when Mike Evans leaves the Buccaneers in the end of the offseason, surprised they didn't trade him at the trade deadline, to be quite honest. But that's my offer. You're going to get that first. It's the thing in this trade that's going to be worth the most in 2 months. Because Mike Evans goes back to being a 30-year-old wide receiver.
True. My second is about 3 picks later than yours. So I'm giving up Mike Evans to move up 3 or 4 picks.
Currently, my pick is the 110
and help a brother.
110. And you're
currently, I'm trying to make it the 112 though,
and I do appreciate it. And what else could I add? Because I really don't want to go down to a third.
You don't have like a third or anything.
I mean, I could throw in something else, something small, something slight, as the kids would say. I don't mind taking on Mike Evans, but I don't want to overpay.
I don't mind taking on Mike Evans. He said, "Do you hear this? Do you hear this, man? That's wide receiver 9. That's why. We're going to talk about this game.
You're right. It goes back.
Wide receiver 9.
Okay.
Hold on.
Sure.
Let's talk about how his games have gone this year.
Hold on. Would I be expected to pay that?
Touchdowns are 6 points.
Okay.
Right? They're 6 points. Everybody loves when their player gets a touchdown. Sleeper sends you a notification. It's a beautiful thing. Game 1, touchdown. Game 2, touchdown. Game 3, touchdown. No. Touchdown, no. Touchdown, 2 touchdowns. The man is consistently getting in the end zone. And Baker loves the man. And Jerry is just trying to be a helpful friend to Randall Young in Patreon 9, where I am just not ready to win in that situation. And I can be just a wonderful guy. For what? 112? 111? 110?
Well, hold on.
What are we talking about?
What about this? What about this? This is something that could help you and it could help me. I could move you a tight end. You need a tight end. You've got Chig Okonkwo, Robert Tonyan, and OJ Howard. I've got Dallas Goedert. I've got Cole Kmet. Using Cole Kmet right now. But this is tight end premium. Or maybe you want a running back. Maybe I could throw in a Tajay Spears.
If you want to talk tight end, we could probably talk tight end.
Okay. So we're not far off.
No.
Well, listen, here's what we're going to do. Like back in the day on television, they used to have these things called to be continued. So Jerry and I will work on this trade, closing this up, and we will report back next week how this trade shook out. Fair?
Deal.
All right, let's go to the game where Tampa Bay come to Indy, my hometown, not really, but close enough. And I did put on the show sheet. Maybe that's why you're trying to milk me like a cow. Stock up, Mike Williams? Question mark? Let me just be real honest with the listener while impacting my trade value. I mean, Mike Evans is 30, pretty healthy guy throughout the course of his career, and I don't know if it's the way the game is played or the coaching or the health and nutrition, the medical staff. I don't know. But wide receivers are able to play at a higher level longer. You were telling me how much I had to pay for Mike Evans. Should I have to pay the same thing for Adam Thielen? Except he was a late round pick who's 33. So I do see where there could be some value. Maybe my offer is a little bit short, but that was the question I asked was Mike Evans? I mean, not bad.
Dude's been about it. Dude has been, and I was ready to say Jonathan Taylor, stock backup to Jonathan Taylor,
He's
but now
fine.
he's
Going to miss 2 games. Settle down.
I know, but it's actually a good thing if you are a Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss owner, because now you're not worrying about the splitting. You're just getting all the Zach Moss, and he's still been good. I mean, he had 10 touches for 70 yards this past week with Jonathan Taylor having a 2-touchdown game. So that's actually a good thing in that situation.
I mean, we could have said.
Go ahead. I was going to say most people in this game.
Well, we could have said Rashad White. I know people love, but we've been right on. At least I've been right on Rashad White all year. You might have been a little bit pessimistic.
Nah, I like Rashad White, and we could talk about Michael Pittman too. 10 catches, over the century mark, 13 targets. What the hell you want out this man?
How about this? You know, and we'll save this for a different show. But is there a more unsung hero for fantasy football this year than Shane Steichen?
Yeah, I mean,
several games without Jonathan Taylor, lost your starting quarterback in week 4, 5, whatever it was. And for this offense to have been very relevant for Zach Moss, JT, Michael Pittman, Gardner Minshew's been a usable QB too. It just goes to show you, I actually said this on the First Class Fantasy Show, it is malpractice for a GM and the owner of a team that's in contention, like the Cincinnati Bengals, like the Jets, to go into the season without a capable backup. It is a shame when guys like Trevor Siemian, when guys like Zach Moss, no offense to Josh Dobbs, but he turned back into a bit of a pumpkin this week. It is malpractice. And whether you like him or whether you don't, the reason why he's unemployed is because he's unlikable in the locker room. But Carson Wentz has played QB at a high level. His last year in Indy, he was 27 touchdowns, 9 INTs. Again, not saying, the 49ers did this. They clearly didn't see anything in Trey Lance. Oh, wait a minute, we were right again. But they were like, hey, you know what? We're going to go get Sam Darnold. We've seen flashes. He's looked good in pockets in New York. He looked good in limited games in Carolina. Hey, that's a serviceable backup at the NFL level. It is malpractice for these teams not to have good backups. Anyway, that was a little soapbox on Shane Steichen and because the Colts are probably going to wind up in the playoffs with Gardner, the mustache Minshew.
It's true. Speaking of a matchup with absolutely putrid quarterbacks.
Patriots and Tommy, you're talking bad about Tommy DeVito.
The Gabagool.
The Gabagool. I love the Tommy DeVito memes, like when they're tied back to the Sopranos. There was one from season 2. I'm a huge Sopranos nerd. You got Tony right here over my shoulder with Richie, and he goes, "Good kid, capable." So that's what someone said when you hear 2 Italian guys talking about Tommy DeVito. Good kid, capable. My stock up was Jalen Hyatt. I don't know if he just needed some time to develop. 5 for 109.
Yeah.
Sneaky stash if, you are that contender, or like in this trade with Jerry where I'm offering him Trey Palmer. You're looking, if you're rebuilding right now, you're looking for these young guys that have given you a couple of flashes. And I think Jalen Hyatt fits that bill for me because there's no one else in this game that I want to talk about.
Exactly. The only person I would say is Ramondre Stevenson, had 26 touches and 107 yards, which is the efficiency of a fucking pine cone. He got you some points because he got so much and he got into the end zone, but yeah, Jalen Hyatt's the only guy that showed any sort of sexiness at all, and it was good to see finally because I liked Jalen Hyatt coming in. I thought he was pretty undervalued. He was in a position where he could be a guy, and he finally was. We'll see if he can keep building on it, though.
Ramondre Stevenson. There was a podcast that said 88 targets from last year wasn't feasible going forward. Anyhow.
Well, he still got 5 targets. He just got 9 yards with it.
And he's the RB19 on the season.
Yeah.
Jacked me off with a breast pump. Anyway, Panthers at the Titans.
Where do you get these? Is there a book? Is there a book at a library that you get these from?
I am required reading. Panthers at Titans. I was like, literally on their show sheet, I write hard to find anything of merit.
I mean, yeah.
Will Levis has been struggling.
Derrick Henry scored. I mean, he was poop last week. He finally did something.
Yeah, but this again goes back to the patron chat when we were, on Sundays, you and I and some of the others were around to do start sit questions, and someone posed the question of Derrick Henry or someone else. I'm like, Derrick Henry. I was like, it may take 25 carries to get him 89 yards. I was like, but he's got that touchdown upside.
Yep.
I don't see anything on either one of these teams that has. I'm hoping that the Panthers can figure out the whole head coach offense situation.
Everything.
Because Frank, listen, I mean, I'm an Indy fan. Indy's offensive line didn't change very much when Shane Steichen took over. And you go look at the Carolinas Panthers offensive line from last year, they weren't as bad as this year. Common denominator, Frank Reich and his offense. There is hope. If you have someone that, like, if you have a contender that would take Gardner Minshew for Bryce Young because they want the points, that's the kind of deal you can make. If Josh Dobbs doesn't get benched and you can move Josh Dobbs for Bryce Young as a non-contender, it's a deal worth making. He was the 101 that they literally gave away the farm for.
If you want to go after Bryce Young, you do have to do it right now, though. Because when you get into the offseason, his value will go up. Because there will be a hive that will say, bounce back, bounce back, bounce back. They'll give you a bunch of stats about comparable dynasty relevant quarterbacks, and his value will peak. So if he is somebody you want to do, you're going to have to do it pretty quick.
I think here, so I'm just going by like their current ranking. I think you could probably get Bryce Young plus for Russell Wilson, the current QB 14. Baker Mayfield straight up. Can you get that deal done?
I don't think so.
People don't like
Baker.
Matt Stafford coming off of 4 tutties.
I mean, it would depend.
I'm just saying. How bad has Bryce Young been this year? It's a good question. I'm glad you asked. Less fantasy points than Mac Jones. Anyway, I'm not talking anymore about the Panthers or the Titans. I'm just sad now. Right. Another game that was not great, Steelers at the Bengals. And my stock up is Najee with 2 question marks. Since their bye in week 6, so week 7 through now, he's been the RB13. Yeah. Ironically, Jaylen Warren in that same time frame, RB12. So we've got a new offensive coordinator. I'm not telling you Najee's got a new lease on life, but the offense and the offense around him could be going up. He's going to be the preferred touchdown guy. It's going to give you a nice opportunity as the stock goes up to sell.
I tend to agree with you. I have quite a few Najee shares, and it's been nice to actually get some production the last couple of weeks. You want to know who doesn't have production or touches? Joe Mixon. He got 10 touches, and he got 50 yards. 8 carries for 16 yards. Ew. Like that's horrible.
It should have been. He should be the backbone of the offense right now, quite frankly.
Exactly. I mean, with Jake Browning starting, you would think. I mean, honestly, Deontay Johnson's been pissing me off too the last couple of weeks. I think that's just a product of Kenny Pickett just not being him. Like, he's fine. He's I think
Deontay will be plying his trade somewhere else in the offseason.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I am excited for that.
Which is why
I'm going to hold on to him.
Maybe he'll be catching short intermediate passes from Bryce Young. One more 1:00 game. It is the Saints at the Falcons. And for me, it's stock up on Drake London. By the way, I have bad news for everybody. The Falcons, coached by Arthur Smith, are in first place in the NFC South. You may not like this next bit of information is going to make you sad. Arthur Smith's the best head coach in the NFC South. He's better than Todd Bowles. He was better than Frank Reich. He's better than Dennis Allen. Whether you like it or not, Arthur Smith is the best head coach in that division, and he's not going anywhere. But I do like the attempts at getting Drake London more involved. As the kids would say, maybe just Kyle Pitts hitting him. Because Bijan was way more involved. I'm not going to say stock up on Bijan. Bijan, we already knew his stock up. But I've got flashes of hope with Drake London.
I think that's fine. I mean, there's going to be weeks where you're just pissed off for sure. Yeah, I mean, the Kyle Pitts
Where
thing
are you at
sucks.
with Olave? Let me ask you about a Chris Olave question.
Well,
He had a great game.
Do we know how long he is out for? Is he going to miss any time? You don't know if that.
I
off the top of your
don't
head?
know. My thing with Chris Olave, this is what I said coming into the season. I love the talent. I hate the situation.
Yeah, 100%.
I said he was going to be an upper tier wide receiver 2. He's a little bit below that right now. He is currently the wide receiver 19, and he's coming off of one of his best games. He's been on a bit of a heater, but that just goes to show you how locked, how dialed in and how, well wide receivers are producing right now. I mean, you got Michael Pittman. You talked about him averaging 16 points a game. That's the wide receiver 13 on the season. The wide receiver position is giving more than ever.
100%. And you're going to see, the thing about it is at the end of the season, Chris Olave is probably going to have 1,100, 1,200 yards. And those numbers in the offseason are going to make him seem better than he actually was week to week. So I think his value is going to go up, even if he just continues to do what he has done, which is not anything super sexy. Yeah, he seems like more of a sizzle than a steak kind of guy, but also, fine. He's fine if you have him in a good role. If you're trying to rely on him to take that next step to be, a Stephon Diggs or something on your team, if you have an old Stephon Diggs or you have an old Mike Williams or Mike Evans and you want to get that sort of production, I don't think you're ever going to get it. So if he's your wide receiver 3, if he's your wide receiver 2, I think you're fine.
All right. Well, I'll go for it if you will, pal. Let's take a quick break. Now, normally this is where we would have Dallas stop by and talk to us about a rookie, but because we're recording early this week, no rookie prospect premonition corner, but follow Dallas on Twitter at Salad Galore, and he'll be tweeting out all the good stuff. Let's run one more commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Hey, so many ask me, what's wrong with sportsbooks? Why so many of them fail? The answer is simple. They don't innovate. They're just casino sportsbooks on a phone. That's all they've been. There are a few that are doing a good job. We partner with them. Most of them, not so much. Until Bet Openly came along. Bet Openly said, hey, we're going to innovate. We're going to do something groundbreaking. We're going to have peer-to-peer betting in all states, and you pay 1%. When you win, you pay just 1% on your winnings. You heard that right. It's 1%. With code Underworld, you qualify for just that 1% transaction fee on Bet Openly. It gives you ultimate flexibility to set your own lines and browse lines that others have set. Think about it. That's what betting should be. And now that is the reality. BetOpenly.com. The code is Underworld. Check it out.
Bet Openly, amazing friend of the Underworld. Jerry, 6 more games. We'll see if we can find the accelerator. Rams at Cardinals. For me, it's stock down on Puka Nacua.
Yeah.
Puka Nacua to me is a tale that I had to learn the hard way with James Robinson. Even when a lower drafted guy comes out of nowhere, James Robinson was a free agent signing in Jacksonville. When these guys come out, Kenny Golladay was like this too, by the way. He had the huge preseason that year. I remember he had 2 touchdowns against the Colts. When these guys that come out of nowhere and you paid seconds, thirds, fourths, in the case of James Robinson's 5th, or you got them on waivers after your rookie draft, when you get the opportunity to get that big cash out, do it. How high is high? It's like, wait a minute. It's like, I bought this property for $50,000. You're offering me $500,000, and I don't know. And it's right next to a nuclear reactor. I don't know. It's just a bad analogy, but like when something like this, when a commodity hits a high and you don't think it's sustainable, I think you have to cash out. And I'm not dogging Puka, but you're not getting 2 firsts anymore. You're not even probably going to get a first right now. And what's the long term? Again, is it sustainable? Is it repeatable? And so far, it's not even been sustainable for a season. So I'm not throwing him away and taking the same third that I drafted him with, but I'm not anywhere near where I was in September.
No, sir. In October, I had a deal where I got AJ Brown for him. Now, granted, it wasn't straight up. There was other pieces, but they didn't differentiate much of that trade. Mostly the heavy lifting of that trade was Puka Nacua and AJ Brown. Thank you. I will take that. Yeah, I'm with you. Stock up Kyron Williams. I was not the biggest fan. You were. Bro had 200 yards. It's highly effective. Tons of pass catching. Looked great. Shit, we could talk about Trey McBride too. Another one of Randall's guys. That dude's been an absolute animal when it comes to tight end premium leagues. Just catch.
Well,
Oh my God, there's nothing that makes my body tingle than Trey McBride getting 5-6 catches. I don't care if it's for 44 yards. Don't care. That's like an extra 9 points,
for
sir.
60. 7
Yeah.
for 60.
Bingo.
And again, this is what happens. This is kind of like half of the equation that Chris Olave's in right now. Chris Olave has the talent, the skills. He doesn't have the situation.
Yeah.
Trey McBride has the skills, he has the talent, and he has the situation. He has Kyler Murray, who hyper targets the tight end position. I'm not Nostradamus. I'm just going to say, I got a really talented athlete in a really good situation. When you put those two things together, you usually get premium results. Game's not that hard, guys. Just go with it. Next game, Browns at the Broncos. Final score was a bit of a shocker.
Yeah.
By the way, I know people, including like my friends, like the Podfather and Anand Nanduri, talking about you can't give up a first for a head coach. I got news for you. Matt Eberflus is why you give up a first for Sean Payton. Frank Reich is why you give up a first for Sean Payton. Dennis Allen is why you give up a first for Sean Payton. Todd Bowles, Robert Saleh, I could go on and on. This is Brandon Staley. These are the reasons why first you get one every year, along with 6 other picks. There's a reason why that was negotiable. If Andy Reid was on the market, which is odd to say a coach would be on the market, he's going to get a first too, probably multiple firsts.
Correct.
Okay. That's how it works. You can go try and grab the new hotness. This is the same thing we do at Dynasty. You could draft Keenan Allen, or you could draft Jahan Dotson and hope to get the next Keenan Allen, or you just could have had Keenan Allen. I digress. Broncos on an absolute heater right now, won 5 games in a row. Russell Wilson quietly the QB 14 on the season. Cortland Sutton having on pace for, I think he's got 9 touchdowns, on pace for 13. Love to see it. And then my man Javonte Williams, as he's gotten healthier, his last 5 games, here's his touch count in the last 5 games. 18, 30, 25, 13, 21. You average that out, it's about 23 touches a game. If you tell me in the year of our Lord, 2023, that you've got a running back for me getting 23 touches a game, even on a bad offense, this is a mid offense, but even on a bad offense, sign me up. Sign me up for a running back getting that kind of work, Jerry. And as he gets healthier, I think things are on the lookup, because this is a guy I was super high on coming out.
I would agree with you with Javonte Williams. I think Jerome Ford is worth mentioning too. He's young, went to Alabama, then he transfers to Cincinnati, takes Cincinnati to the college football playoff. Just let that sentence resonate in your headphones when you hear it, and how good a player has to be in that instance, because we've seen Desmond Ridder, so we know it wasn't because of him. I mean, Nick Chubb is getting up there. Nick Chubb recovering from a big injury. He should still be there. He's been highly effective. He's found the end zone. I mean, he's got almost 800 yards in 11 games. So he's on pace for probably 1,300 yards. I mean, in his first year starting, and he's cheap because Nick Chubb is going to be there, and Nick Chubb is going to keep his value down. Absolutely a guy you can plug in. And if he does end up being the guy, boop, easy profit.
And Nick Chubb was multiple, it's a bad knee injury. You
Yep.
know, I think him avoiding the pup next year would be a miracle. And Jerome Ford, very serviceable. I like that call. Speaking of first-year starters, rookie tight end Dalton Kincaid is my stock up from the Bills-Eagles game. The Bills defense makes any of these games against good quarterbacks a lot of fun. But dude, Dalton Kincaid over the last 6, he missed a game against I think it was the Giants, but over his last 6, he's averaging over 8 targets a game right now. Yes, please. In a position so devoid of talent, it's coming back. We talked about Trey McBride, Sam Laporta. I think Luke Musgrave is a year away from potentially being something of interest. But man, Dalton Kincaid has been fantastic. You're not getting him cheap. I'll ask you, you're a Lions fan. Kincaid or Laporta? Long term, not just the rest of the season, but like for Dynasty.
I don't know, because you're going to have Josh Allen there for a long time, and that's always going to make it better. And if Stephon Diggs leaves, that's even more opportunity for Dalton Kincaid. I don't know exactly what's going to happen with Jared Goff. Amon-Ra is going to be there for a while. I think it's probably Dalton Kincaid. I don't know if that's what the trade value would suggest currently, but I think if I were to swing it back around to Dynasty rankings, if I was going to rank them, I would probably have Kincaid one spot above him.
All right, I can dig it. A guy that's been on the rise, and I think that he's coming off of a career high in fantasy points at 24.7, but I think he's a name to start trying to acquire before it develops into a pattern, and that's Rashee Rice. In the Raiders-Chiefs game, they need someone not named Travis Kelce to step up. And in this game and on the season, he's their wide receiver 1. He's gonna start. You're gonna start hearing a drum beat, and if he puts another back-to-back, like 2 or 3 games in a row of like 15 to 20 points, he's going to be hotter than you could ever imagine, and you're not going to get him any cheaper. I think he's the guy, and I think based on the amount of money that they're paying Chris Jones, their star defensive tackle, the amount of money they're paying Kelce, the amount of money they're paying Mahomes, they need cheap producers somewhere. That's why I was on Sky Moore. I was wrong on Sky Moore, but Rashee Rice could be that guy. And that stock's only going to go up, Jerry. So what are your thoughts on Rashee Rice? Who is your stock up, stock down?
I think it has to be Rashee Rice. Not only because he had 100 yards and a tutty, but he's been pretty consistent. I mean, he's had at least 50 yards or a touchdown in 4 of the last 5 games for them. And you look at the Sky Moores and the MVSs and the Mecole Hardman, who's out, but that is irrelevant. You don't see anything. Nothing. The only person with a pulse who's showing you anything as a pass catcher outside of Travis Kelce is Rashee Rice. And he's a rookie. He had good draft capital. I mean, there was a lot of people that drafted him pretty early just because he got drafted by Kansas City, and a lot of people that were skeptical of it. I think both are happy because he's gotten pretty good production. I think he's going to grow. I think he's going to be an absolute banger of an asset next season.
I'll tell you who's probably not going to be a banger of an asset next season is Quentin Johnston. Actually, in this game, the Ravens went to LA to play the Chargers. I think the stock's got to be up on Zay Flowers. Nice little game. He had the rushing touchdown, had the receiving touchdown, had the horrible touchdown celebration that Lamar mocked and said was trash. He wasn't wrong. And then it's stock down on Quentin Johnston. Quentin Johnston, Jerry, on the season, out of all rookie wide receivers, where does he rank? He's just a rookie class. He's wide receiver what?
I don't know how many
receivers.
I don't know how many rookies there are to begin with. So I'll say 41.
There are 15 rookie wide receivers that have scored more points this year than Quentin Johnston, including Jake Bobo, Dontavian Wicks, Trey Palmer.
You didn't draft all them?
Demario Douglas, just to name a few. That's how bad it's been. But wait, Dontavian Wicks is the wide receiver 4 on the Packers, scored more points.
Yeah, that's gross.
Demario Douglas has Mac Jones in a horrible offense.
It's
Jake
gross.
Jake Bobo is the wide receiver 4 in Seattle.
It's bad. Beating a dead horse, though. You know who
It's
my
fun.
stock
It's
down
fun, though.
is a good. It is. I hear you. It's Austin Eckler. Bro, Austin Eckler has just not been the same. He's fumbled back-to-back games, not getting tons of work, not getting into the end zone. He's old. They're sucking. I don't know what the future looks like with him.
He has had a rough couple of weeks. He's had a 7-point and a 9-point game back-to-back. He's still averaging 15.5 PPR points a game.
Yeah, because he missed like 4 games. He's only played like 5, and he had
Right.
2 or 3 good ones.
Yep, he's had 3 good ones and 3 bad ones and one one. He's not getting in the end zone right now, and he's not been overly involved in the passing game. But over the last handful of weeks, he's played the 3rd against the running back position, Lions, 9th in the Ravens. Coming down the stretch, he has the 16th Patriots, 32nd Broncos, 28th Raiders, 20th Bills, 32nd Broncos. So there is better days ahead for Austin Eckler.
Yeah.
At least should be on paper.
Hopefully.
All right, final game of the week, the Bears at the Vikings, an absolute barn burner. I'm not going to kick this dead horse and say Justin Fields. And I understand. I forget who posted it. I can repost it. I have the thing. He literally threw 2 passes beyond the 10-yard line from the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
2. He threw like double digits behind the line of scrimmage. He was dinking and dunking at a level that would make Chad Pennington proud. But that's not my stock down. For me, it's Alexander Madison. He fumbles. He looks like he's running in molasses. He just looked bad. And I know that the Bears defense since week 6 has been one of the best EPA, expected points. It's a high-end efficiency metric. They've been one of the better defenses in the NFL. And their offense has not been great, but the defense has been good. But I just think Alexander Madison looks like complete trash. And I'm going to get him off any fantasy team that I have between now and the fantasy playoffs.
I am fairly certain I don't have any Alexander Madison, and that was a nice little win from Jerry's offseason. I'm going to go stock up on Roshan, though. Finally got a little bit of opportunity. Granted, absolutely putrid offenses. It was a horrible game to watch. It was like watching Iowa and Nebraska just fart directly into each other's mouths. Just a horrible game to watch. I was glad the Bears won, all but locking the North up for the Lions. But Roshan, 15 touches, 75 yards. He had more rushes than Khalil Herbert. He had more receptions than Khalil Herbert. He's the younger guy. He's a cheap guy. It looks like he may be the guy going forward. You're going to have to sweat it a little bit because you're going to get a whole new everything in that offense. So he'll probably have some competition, but I think he is probably in a good position to be the guy going into next season. On top of the fact that he has not been extremely productive this year, is a nice little combination of value and upside going into next year.
He's had 3 games with 4 or more receptions.
That's what I mean.
And again, I don't want to whoop up on Justin Fields. I don't dislike the young man. I just don't think this is the right situation for him. But if the Bears, because people are like, well, will the Bears bring back Justin Fields? How can you? You're going to have the 1st overall pick. You can't trade it away because if you
for the second year in a row,
correct. And I like to jokingly say the Bears also passed on C.J. Stroud. I know we want to pile on Carolina. The Bears had that pick too. They could have pushed that button.
Yeah.
They chose not to.
They chose the other Buckeye.
Can you do it again? Because if you keep Justin Fields, don't you have to pick up his 5th-year option? And then because you picked up his 5th-year option, aren't you committing to him for 2 years? So that not being said, but your point on Roshan Johnson is very well taken, and a lot to like with Roshan Johnson. If he can stay healthy, and if he were to get a quarterback upgrade, because again, Justin Fields does not check down a ton to the running back position. Some, definitely more than other running quarterbacks. But if he were to get like more of a true pocket passer and to get an offensive coordinator that involved the running backs a little bit more in the passing game, Roschon Johnson's going to be a hot name this offseason in Dynasty.
I tend to agree with you. I'm not saying, not going to set the world on fire. Never going to be that guy. But if he can be Javonte Williams, he can be Rashad White.
I think he can give you 1 week. He can give, he could give you 1 year.
Goes bananas. Yeah.
He's a guy that I'm not going to be looking to openly move this offseason. My Roschon shares, I'm going to hang on.
Holden.
I'm going to hang on because I want to see, and if I move any Roschon between now and week 1 of 2024, it's going to be in the offseason as the redraft community creates that drumbeat that, hey, this is Roschon. Hey, they've got Caleb Williams
is coming.
And they've got an improved head coach, because Jim Harbaugh is the odds-on favorite to replace Matt Eberflus.
Please.
And I like the Roschon call, Jerry. That's a strong way to end a strong show.
We try.
It's great to have
getting
you
rid
back.
of Jim Harbaugh was better by you, but
it's going to happen. I mean, if he wins a natty this year,
don't even put that into the universe. Sorry, Diddy.
He's going to Pete Carroll the shit out of this thing.
Yeah,
he's going to go to the
should. He's a good.
He's going to go to the NFL. He's going to get ran out of the NFL. He's going to go to college. He's going to win a natty under some nefarious circumstances, then return to the pro game. Write that down. That is my bold. My bold prediction is that next year it'll be Jim Harbaugh, a brand new QB1, and a lot of optimism and upside in Chicago with Cole Kmet coming off of a career year. DJ Moore's in the middle of a pretty good year. Roschon Johnson. The Chicago Bears are going to have a lot of buzz in the offseason. By the way, a little side note. So you love him, hate him, whatever. I like Dave Portnoy from Barstool. He's a big Michigan guy. He's doing something now where like he's doing a huge bonus. But they did this shirt. Like he was like, hey, you create a shirt and we'll sell it on Barstool and blah, blah, blah. They took, The Hangover, right, with Carlos the baby. Mm-hmm. It's a picture of Jim Harbaugh wearing the Carlos baby carrier with Ryan Day in it as the baby. And it says, born on third base. Gold. Pure gold, Jerry. I don't have a dog in the fight, but I just think that's funny.
No, with all of our Justin Fields bashing, and who did we say? We said stock down on, we got Fields, we got JSN. Now we're talking about Ryan Day. We're not going to have any Buckeyes at all listening to the show
big Marvin Harrison guy.
Yeah, well, okay, maybe that'll salvage him.
Yeah, and I'm big Terry McLaren guy.
Big Travion Henderson too, the running back. I like him a lot.
I'm a big Chris Olave guy.
Not Ryan Day though.
Not Ryan Day.
That boy poops his pants.
He soft as Charmin.
Yeah,
he's soft.
It was a good game. It was a good game. I don't want to surprise anybody that I root for the Buckeyes in that game, but that was a good game.
I don't have a rooting interest because I just want to watch good football. I went to Ball State, for the love of God, Ball State University. So I don't have a dog in this fight, but on the travel baseball team that I coach, I have one young man that's a passionate Ohio State Buckeyes fan and another player who his only dream is to play baseball at the University of Michigan. And those two going at it in our group chat, that was worth the price of admission.
I used to have to deliver food. The U of M baseball team would always order food when I worked at Moe's in Ann Arbor. Awesome facility. So I'm rooting for that kid to get there because it's a killer facility.
Yep. And this has been a killer show. And this is why you stick around to the very end. You never know what Jerry and I will talk about. Born on third base t-shirts, youth baseball rivalries around football. That's what we do. It's what we do here. We help you build winners. Please check out the Patreon. Again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm going to write the book on how to play Dynasty in 2023 and 2024 going forward. But I think it's something that you're really going to want to hear from as we go into like startup season in the upcoming season.
Randall Manifesto.
No, because that's one thing another about the patron again, and we'll make this a sales pitch at the end, is that like there's 200 podcasts on there. You know, for various things. There's a one-off interview with Rich Dodson from there's so much on there, and it's like a master class. If you Google master class, like Daniel Negreanu does a poker one, and Wolfgang Puck or whoever does a cooking one. It's like a master class of Dynasty Fantasy Football. Even if you sign up for 1 month, it's $5, helps the show, and you could go through and blast through the archives, and then you could quit the following month. Lots of things you could do, or you could just do it because you want to hang out more with me and Jerry. But Jerry, you want to hang out again next week?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's do it again next week. So on behalf of that man, his name is Jerry Sinclair. We call him the man of the hour and the man with the power. Follow him at Jerry Sin DWZ. You can follow me at DWZ Memphis. And remember, here at the Dynasty Warzone, we're just trying to make the world a better place for fantasy football. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next week.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.